Live from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us this evening, and this is what we have for you on the program tonight. Breaking the deadlock. British MPs vote in a series of amendments that could change the course of Brexit. Naming the date. Pressure piles on Theresa May to set a departure date to get her deal over the line. EU overstep. Are European politicians crossing a line by calling for another referendum? Sorry, not sorry. Madrid refuses a Mexico demand to apologize for the Spanish conquest. And not so fast. The Pope breaks tradition in tonight's Raw Moment. All right, joining us this evening is Dan Dalton. He is a British MEP who sits with the European Conservatives and Reformists group. Which angle, in fact, of Brexit, because we're all looking at Brexit, which angle of it are you watching closely tonight?
Well, I think those votes tonight and how they go are going to be absolutely key. So they're really the thing I'm focusing on at the moment. All
right. And also joining us is Sophie in 't Veld. She's a Dutch MEP who sits with the Alliance of Liberal and Democrats. What about you, Sophie?
Well, you know, it's not very original, but pretty much the same. I mean, this is all, there are lots of very important topics on the agenda, but clearly this is keeping us very, very busy. You know, we never know what's going to happen from one day to the next or even
No,
1 hour.
absolutely. And there is a lot of maneuvering behind the scenes. So let's begin with this quite complex story tonight. Will the British Prime Minister Theresa May, in fact, sacrifice her job for her Brexit deal? That is the question on everyone's lips tonight. The UK Prime Minister left 10 Downing Street amid mounting pressure this afternoon. She's addressing her Conservative MPs as we speak. And there's speculation that if MPs agree to support her Brexit plan, she will step aside and let someone else lead renegotiations. We'll bring you all the latest information as it happens. But first, let us take a listen to Theresa May speaking in the House of Commons earlier today.
We are continuing to work to ensure that we can deliver Brexit for the British people and guarantee that we deliver Brexit for the British people. We have a deal which cancels our EU membership fee, which stops the EU making our laws, which gives us our own immigration policy, ends the common agricultural policy for good, ends the common fisheries policy for good. Other options don't do that. Other options would lead to delay, to uncertainty, and risk never delivering Brexit.
So many questions tonight on what is going to happen next. Vincent McAvity, our correspondent, is following all the latest from London for us. So, Vincent, all right, Theresa May, she is talking to her Conservative MPs as we speak tonight. What more can you tell us about what is happening behind closed doors?
Good evening, Tessa. That's right. That meeting has just started right now on the committee corridor in the House of Commons. The Prime Minister faces the 1922 committee. And I've got to say, earlier on today in Prime Minister's questions, I was in the chamber and her MPs were pretty subdued. They weren't as vocal as they normally were. The Prime Minister will be going to them tonight to outline what exactly she is going to do now, because we have these indicative votes coming up tonight. It's not clear how the government will whip if they do. If they don't whip, it really shows that they are not really in control anymore as MPs finally get their say on what's going on. But in the last few minutes, the government has signalled it's going to try and change the calendar this week so that Friday is another sitting day in the hopes of bringing back the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement for a third meaningful vote. But at the same time, the Speaker, John Bercow, has just reiterated that the Prime Minister cannot bring back that withdrawal agreement without any substantial changes. So the Prime Minister, even if she does do a deal right now with the 1922 committee to get the vote she needs by outlining a timetable for her departure, and it's not clear that's what she is going to do. There's been no word, sources very tight-lipped from Downing Street on her intentions. We had thought we were going to get some indication, but the Prime Minister is going to try and get their votes. But at the moment, it's not clear whether or not she can actually bring back the withdrawal agreement anyway. So the Prime Minister really adrift at the moment. And as well as the Brexiteers in her party that she needs to get on board, some of them, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, flipping over to support her, there is a hard Remain element now that is going against the Prime Minister within her own party, and the DUP are still not on board. They'll be doing a statement tonight at 6 o'clock local time on their intentions over the next couple of days.
Vincent, do stay with us for a bit. I just want to show our viewers what exactly MPs will be voting on later today. There's quite a few of them. So first of all, we're talking about a no deal, a customs union as well. It's called a Customs Union 2.0, which means a UK would join EFTA, staying in the EEA and a single market, and enter a customs arrangement until a solution to the Irish backstop can be found. We have EFTA and EEA, which essentially means the Norway model without the customs union. And we also have a UK-wide customs union. And other than that, we have Labour's alternative plan, which means a customs union and alignment with a single market. And also there is that option of revoking Article 50 in the case of a no deal, and that any deal should be put to a second referendum. And lastly, in the case of a no deal, the UK will seek a standstill agreement with the EU. All right, so Vincent, which of these do we think is going to get the most support from MPs?
Well, the really interesting to watch is, of course, that second referendum one and the revoking Article 50. Now, on the second referendum, MPs did have a vote on that last week and it didn't pass, but that's because the Labour Party didn't whip to back it, and the People's Vote campaign themselves told MPs that support the second referendum not to back it on that occasion, because that vote last Thursday was all about getting the extension to Article 50 that was needed. Now, we will see in the next couple of hours whether or not there is a support for that second referendum, because if you add the votes of the independent group, the SNP, the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, and some Remain Tories, it might just get a majority. But of course, it's not binding on the government. All of this is indicative to the Prime Minister, and then she will have to decide. So Labour will also obviously vote for their plans, and I think it'll be interesting to see whether a substantial number actually vote for the revocation of Article 50 to just completely walk away from Brexit. But the one that's going to be most important, though, for the options the Prime Minister has if she can't bring back her withdrawal agreement for that meaningful vote, is whether or not there is support for that second referendum.
All right, thank you for that, Vincent McAviney there in London. All right, when we look at all those options, it seems like they're just variations of, slight variations in the different deals, although there is also the option of no deal. But clearly, Theresa May is married to her version of the deal, if I may say so. What's happening behind closed doors? I'll ask you first, Dan. Do you think she's willing to sacrifice her political career to say, I'm going to leave, I step down, if my Brexit deal gets through?
I think she probably would do that. I think the problem is, I'm not sure that guarantees the deal going through, because the reason people are opposed to the deal is because they've got real problems with the substance of the deal, and they feel that that closes the door to future certain options in the future relationship. So the Prime Minister going doesn't necessarily change that opposition that they had to the deal. So I'm not sure even if she goes, it necessarily brings her deal over the line. Now, there are members of Parliament who are beginning to move towards her. We've seen Jacob Rees-Mogg has gone in the last couple of days. So the momentum is moving towards passing the deal anyway, but she's still a long way to go.
Because they're more worried of a no deal in this case.
Yeah, I think it's becoming clear now that if the deal isn't passed, there's going to be a long extension, there's going to be European elections, and ultimately it probably means there isn't going to... Well, either the UK might not leave, or they're certainly not going to leave without a deal.
It does feel, Sophie, from watching this from the outside, it does feel that she is in a corner, or do you think she still has the power? Does she even have the choice, or has she completely lost control of Brexit? What is her position here now? How precarious is it, essentially?
You say control. I mean, I'm watching this and I can't help thinking, I'm increasingly curious exactly what the campaign slogan, taking back control, was referring to. Because there doesn't seem to be any control anymore. I cannot tell the British people and the British politicians what they want. That's for them to choose. I cannot tell them, whether they think Mrs. May is the best leader to solve the situation or not. It's not up to us. We just have to wait what the British decide to do. But what is clear to me is that we need certainty very, very quickly for businesses and for citizens, because people are waiting. They don't know what will happen. Will there be a Brexit in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 years? Will there be no Brexit at all? What's going to happen? We see businesses who've been preparing, and for big multinationals it may not be a problem, but if you have a small and medium-sized company, people have been stockpiling things that they cannot keep forever. So we need certainty, we need a decision.
All right, so do you think she has lost control? What about what you think?
I don't think she has lost control. I mean, the problem has always been trying to get that deal.
I mean, her political career is on the line now. You don't think she's lost control?
Not really. I mean, this is the most difficult issue Britain has faced in post-war politics. She doesn't have a majority in Parliament anyway. Given those two huge sort of historical facts, it's very difficult to see any path through. I don't think anyone could necessarily get the path through. But there is movement towards the deal getting through. The problem is we have a deadline. We have a deadline of the end of the week for the deal to get through and 12th of April to have an extension if we're going to have an extension. And that's the real challenge.
Do you want to say something to what he said?
No, but the point is that, if you take a step back, it's very interesting in the short term to speculate about the political fate of Mrs. May. But quite honestly, that is not the issue here. The issue is that we see, for example, in the UK, but not exclusively in the UK, a political system which is clearly not, it's a two-party system, which is not designed for tackling this kind of issues. We see in the United States, we've seen a couple of government shutdowns in recent years because there were two big parties, but we also see in the Council of the European Union a growing number of deadlocks because, there's this trench politics and we, in this case, for example, if you'll allow me, they're two big parties who should be able together to take responsibility and build consensus and compromise, because that's what needs to happen here. They need to find a compromise, and not just because there has to be a majority in Parliament, but whatever happens. If there is a Brexit, when there is a Brexit, if there's no Brexit, the British people will still have to continue, and you cannot have a completely divided population. Anyone will have to deal with that, even if there were to be a second referendum.
If anyone were to deal with all of this, and how important is it that Theresa May stays as a figurehead for the sake of continuity? Because you were talking about how this impacts small businesses, it's the chaos of it. What about the continuity? How important is it that she, as a symbol or figurehead of the negotiations that already happened, is important?
This is not about one person. It's not about, that's nice for the tabloids maybe to speculate about her political future. I don't think that is the biggest issue here. The issue here is that we go back to a stable situation, that people know what they can expect, people in the UK, people in the European Union, and it is a joint responsibility. It's not just up to one person.
Party politics aside, you're pretty much saying.
Well, I think there are bigger issues here than just the political fate of Mrs. May.
Yeah, and what do you think? Party politics taking at the heart of it? I mean, that's a criticism coming from Europe, from the EU, from the rest of the 27 countries, saying, well, actually, they're playing local, domestic politics to their audience, to the MPs, rather than thinking of the common good. Is that how you see it?
All politics is local. I mean, it doesn't matter at what level you do in politics.
Sure,
it always goes to the local level.
In this case, it is the fate and future of a bloc.
Yeah, but the difficulty is the referendum campaign was leave or remain. So we chose to leave. No one defined what that leave would be. And I think that's the challenge now is everyone in Parliament is trying to define what the leave is. We're actually 2 days away from when the UK would have left the EU, and we're still trying to define what leave means. And I think that's actually the source of the problem. The voting system and our political system in the UK is built on two major parties. It's built on getting a majority, and then you're able to push through whatever you want. The culture is very different from the political culture in Europe. When you have a hung parliament, you always have these sort of divisive times, and it's just coincided with the most difficult issue we've ever tried to solve.
All right, well, we did try to gauge what other MEPs were saying about what is happening in the UK and Theresa May's future. Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, he spoke with some of them today. Darren, what is the mood like here in Strasbourg?
Well, we had a pretty lively debate earlier on this morning involving a range of characters from Donald Tusk to Jean-Claude Juncker to Nigel Farage and Guy Verhofstadt. It is clear that Brexit is still very much dominating proceedings here in Strasbourg. Though it must be said, I think there is somewhat relief that MPs have taken over this process in Westminster. Incredible frustration with Theresa May, and a sign, I think, from MEPs, Tessa, that they just simply do not no longer trust her to be able to deliver on Brexit, on her deal, or indeed in any really political decision-making in London. So a wide range of views, certainly when I spoke to MEPs earlier on today, including, it must be said, a sense that many of them just want this subject of Brexit to go away.
Yeah, she should. If she achieves her objective, her goal, to solve the problem, it would be good that she resigns.
I think she's been a disaster. I think certainly the worst Prime Minister since Eden. I think she needs to go. I don't think her heart's been in it from the beginning. I don't think she's really wanted Brexit. And as you know, if you do something half-hearted, you never really do it properly.
Frankly, I think it's a bit of a distraction to focus on the Prime Minister's role now. It's more important that there's a common position on what the UK can bring to Brussels.
This we must leave to the British. She was elected by them and they must decide what to do about her. Generally, we are worried about what's going on with Britain.
The British people voted to leave. We should be leaving on Friday, and I am deeply ashamed that it at present appears that we're not actually leaving on Friday.
Do you think Theresa May should resign if it helps get Brexit through Parliament?
Frankly, I couldn't care less.
Why not?
Well, it is the British people who have to make up their mind, and I'm really tired of thinking about what should help and what not.
I couldn't care less, fed up, bored. I think that is a sentiment that is shared not just by that German MEP, but many, many here in Strasbourg and beyond. But tonight, Theresa May is speaking to a packed room in the House of Commons, trying to save her deal and indeed her premiership, being no doubt, though, Tessa, that people here in Strasbourg, in Brussels and in European capitals are already contemplating and talking about Britain post-May and who they may well have to end up dealing with beyond the May administration, maybe potentially in just a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks for that, Darren. And now joining us to discuss this is Christopher Fjellner, a Swedish MEP who sits with the European People's Party group here in the Parliament. We saw that German MP Jens Geier, actually, he was saying that, well, he's tired of it. He's bored of it. He couldn't care less. Is this the general feeling that you're getting about what's happening with Brexit?
No, you know, I'm still sad that everything seems to happen, but whether Theresa May will stay or not, okay, it's not up for me to say, as Jens pointed out, but since you invited me, I must say that I'm pretty amazed about the stamina that she's showing, you know. How much beating can a single person take in politics? But fundamentally, it ain't about May, it's about what does Britain want? And the problem is that the vote they're having tonight, they should probably have had that 2 years ago or something, so we know what Britain wants.
Yeah, so, okay, what does the UK want? What are we going to see if you were to have a crystal ball in front of you?
Well, it's pretty unpredictable. I don't know which one of them will go through. I think...
And what do you want?
Well, I would like the PM's deal to go through. I mean, to be honest, and if that's not possible, probably the best way out of this is to maybe park in a sort of EFTA, Norway type of situation for a period of time and then try and work out the relationship going from there. But that doesn't please a lot of people because then you can't impose restrictions on freedom of movement, for example. And that's, I think, the real challenge. What I'm a little bit concerned about is they may vote tonight for a customs union for the UK. And I think people maybe don't really understand what being in the customs union when you're outside of the EU actually means. I mean, it's the situation Turkey is in, and that will put the UK long-term in a very, very weak situation.
But what I worry about is the fact that nothing might go through. Actually, we might still be as confused, or that actually that the British Parliament acts as my children does when they're writing their wish list for birthday. We want a unicorn, you know, I think they wrote top, that they actually ask for things that just can't be delivered. We want no customs union, we don't want the internal market, but we still don't want a border between England, Britain and Northern Ireland. And if anything like that goes through, it doesn't help anything. But one thing that I'm worried about when it comes specifically to Theresa May is that she might go for a no-deal Brexit just to kind of keep the Conservative Party together.
But that doesn't seem to be the case now. I mean,
hopefully not. But if
married.
everything falls to pieces tonight, then, you know...
I think it's difficult to go for no deal. Firstly, not all the Conservative Party back it, I can assure you of that. And secondly, she has no backing in Parliament for that. Now, even though Parliament can't stop it, I think it's a very big, big move to go for no deal and all the implications that come from that if you haven't got political backing.
Sit down. Why do you think someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg is moving closer to supporting Theresa May, even if nothing has substantially changed in her deal? What are they afraid of?
I think they fear that Brexit itself is under threat now. And actually, if the deal doesn't go through, in the end, this is a process that will lead to the UK not leaving at all.
But this is a scenario that the EU is certainly not afraid of.
No, let's talk. Okay, a little bit frustrated maybe that this limbo is going on, but I don't want Britain to leave. So in a sense, if you I'd like you to come back next term as well. And if that would be the outcome of this, nobody would be happier than I would. But the problem is, of course, that Britain keeps to ask for the impossible. And or extensions beyond the parliamentary elections, but no election in Britain. You know, that there's all these strange.
As an outsider watching British politics, is there anyone when you're looking at the politicians that you think could possibly lead this negotiation much better than Theresa May? You're saying, yeah, she's doing a great job taking a beating, but is there someone else who could probably do a better job?
As long as Britain hasn't decided
to not ask for a unicorn, as you say, because this is. The uncertainty is what is bringing all this up.
I've done trade policy for 15 years here in the European Parliament or in this House, and I've learned two things. If you're going to succeed in something, you need a clear mandate and you need broad political backing. Then you can deliver almost anything.
Which she...
The problem is that she doesn't have. And as long as... It wouldn't matter if you change her for someone else to do it. As long as you don't have the mandate and not have the political backing, then of course you can't deliver anything. So the focus that sadly becomes on Theresa May kind of hides the bigger picture, agree on something, a compromise, but on something. And I think that if you're going to deliver on Brexit, Theresa May's deal is probably not only the best around, it's probably the only one around.
All right, Dan, just a quick answer from you. Do you think she will step down? Yes or no?
I don't think she will, no.
You think she'll hold her ground?
Yeah. She's shown consistently that she's held her ground and she's survived when people have written her off, and I think she'll do the same again.
Isn't that putting yourself first over country, or...?
Not at all. I think that's the other way around. I think actually if she fell on her sword now to try and get a deal through that may now well not get through, she could put the country in a more difficult situation.
All right, well, we're all watching that closely, what's going to happen tonight. And coming up on Raw Politics, a lot more. EU politicians call for a fresh Brexit referendum, but are they meddling in EU affairs? Plus, we also have, if you drive a fast car, you're going to want to stick around to hear how the EU is planning to slow you down. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Politics. EU Council President Donald Tusk made a direct call to the people of Britain today who want to remain in the EU. His message was simple. We're on your side, even if your own parliament isn't. But not all MEPs were in the mood to be so generous towards British voters in the European Parliament today. Let's take a look.
You cannot betray the 6 million people who signed the petition to revoke Article 50, the 1 million people who marched for a people's vote, or the increasing majority of people who want to remain in the European Union. They may feel that they are not sufficiently represented by the UK Parliament, but they must feel that they are represented by you in this chamber, because they are Europeans.
I believe that such an existential issue as the Brexit can only be decided on a cross-party agreement in a parliament, as we do here in this European Parliament.
If the situation remains to be blocked, then there is only one chance. Ask the people. Ask the people. Yes, I know why you shy away from that, because you are afraid of everything what happens in London streets, afraid to death because you can't stand it anymore. This will be the solution, and the British people will tell you where to go.
The EU still seems to continue pursuing the same policy of deterrence, which, roughly speaking, consists of two elements. First, to punish the United Kingdom by a no deal, so that no one in the future would dare to follow their footsteps. And secondly, to humiliate the United Kingdom.
Right, joining us to discuss this is Roberto Gualtieri, an Italian MEP who sits with the Socialists and Democrats group and on the European Parliament's Brexit steering group as well. And also joining us, Nigel Farage, a British MEP who sits with the Europe of Freedom and Direct Democracy group. All right, Nigel, I'll ask you this first. You've said it in the past on the show, leave is leave, that's it. But Donald Tusk clearly wearing his heart on his sleeve, if you say so, his feelings.
Yes.
He doesn't want the UK to...
Yes, there was lots of emotion there, yes.
There is a lot of emotion.
A lot of emotion, but somewhat deluded. He talks about 1 million people marching. Well, it wasn't. It was 1/3 of a million. But still a lot of people, I'll grant you.
Organisers did say
he talks... Yeah,
A million.
He talks about a petition signed by people from all over the world. What he doesn't talk about is the 17.4 million who voted Brexit in the referendum. But more importantly, what nobody in that parliament today referenced was what has happened over the last 3 weeks in the opinion polls in the United Kingdom. We've seen a dramatic shift towards leaving with no deal. And the reason is people have just had enough of this Brexit agony going on, and they want a conclusion. And you're now looking at leads of 15% plus for leaving the European Union.
Well, I think it depends on what survey you're looking at. Because there's what UK thinks, who say that 54%, I think, want to remain now versus 46% back then.
That is hugely out of date. If you look at what's happened in the last 3 weeks, there's been a massive shift on this. And it's as if there is a belief in this European Parliament that the UK voters now want to remain. They don't.
All right, we will know if we ask. Udo Bullman said, ask the people. All right, I will ask you about what we heard from the Parliament there. Are our MEPs, is the EU, is Donald Tusk overstepping the line and sort of interfering in UK affairs?
No, I don't think so, because, of course, we have to respect the outcome of the referendum. That's the reason why we have been, while considering Brexit a catastrophic mistake, No. We respect it while regretting the referendum. But, of course, we have also to respect those European citizens, UK and European citizens, that are saying clearly and loudly that they want to remain. We represent also them, so we cannot be biased. And also because, yes, there has been a referendum and we have negotiated a withdrawal agreement, but today is Wednesday, the day of leaving was supposed to be Friday, and still there is no agreement on the deal. So clearly something's going wrong. I think we cannot. No, something's going wrong. But why? But why was going wrong? Because the concrete implications of Brexit that were clearly kept hidden in the campaign of the referendum now are becoming clear. So one thing is abstract to say you want to remain or to leave, but when you understand what are the consequences, that's why I think there is a shift of opinion, and why when you have to choose in concrete, but what is the plan? What is the plan for leaving the Union? What is the plan?
The majority,
and then citizens are rightly concerned, but you know
the majority now is to leave on WTO terms.
Oh yeah, that's I don't think so.
And it's now
that's what you think. That what you think, but it is not interested of the United Kingdom, and I don't think it is a broad majority in the Parliament. The UK Parliament just voted they don't want no deal because they know that no deal would be a mistake.
Science is very useful at times. Being analytical is quite helpful, and taking emotion.
I don't think you are being analytical.
If you take emotion out of it,
no, I have no emotion.
Leaving with no deal is now the most popular by far of all the options in the United Kingdom, commanding a big majority, and that's where we are. That's where
I cannot compete on this level of propaganda.
Well, you see, this is it. You guys seem to think that Brexit's a terrible mistake and that somehow we're going to change our minds. We are not.
All the employees' organisation, all the worker organisation, or those to say, look at the consequences of the UK economy, look at the consequences of cities. They are crazy.
Our growth is double the Eurozone. Our employment is the highest it's ever been. The UK economy...
You are currently a member of the European Union and the single market.
Since the Brexit vote,
I remind you
despite all the warnings we were given, we were told if we voted to leave, we would lose half a million. And we're happy.
You were saying that there's more appetite for just a no deal, leave without a deal. But we are seeing members of like Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example, just moving closer to supporting Theresa May's deal because there seems to be fear of leaving without a deal. It's the opposite of what you were saying.
Jacob would like to leave without a deal. That's his preferred choice. But the reason Jacob Rees-Mogg is moving his position is he genuinely fears, that this issue is so divisive within the Conservative Party that it could split the Conservative Party. And I think what you're seeing...
Are you saying this is all about party politics, then?
I'm afraid to a very large extent it is, yes. And that's the problem. The people have had their say, and our political system is simply not implementing it.
But still, they could be supporting Theresa May. Okay, I'd like to know what you would like to come out of tonight. What is the most reasonable...
I think finally it's very important that the UK Parliament is taking back control and is deciding what are the positive options, not only what they don't want.
So you're happy that the MPs took control of this?
I think it's a very positive element because we have seen a deal negotiated and then it is not being able to pass through the parliament. So it was clear there was big mistakes by the government. So now the parliament is thinking about what is the future. And I think the fact that among those options, there are options that foresee a closer relationship between the United Kingdom and Europe. This is good, because this is good for both economies, and for the future. It is strategic choices for the destiny of a United Kingdom. And those who thought that the United Kingdom could just be a free rider of a globalized world, they don't know how really we are embedded in a system of rules which are also strong safeguards for citizens, for rights, for worker rights, for environmental rights, but are also a boost for our economy. So we are integrated. This is the history. We cannot change that.
But we want democracy.
So the fact that among those options, majority of the options are options which foresee a closer relationship, or also that foresee to give back the word to the people, I think is a sign of wisdom. It's a sign of wisdom of the UK Parliament.
A quick reply for you, Nigel, because 8 options being debated, 7 remain and 1 leave. And that sums up the gap between our Parliament and the people.
All right, we'll leave it at that for now because we do have breaking news at the moment. Let's go to our correspondent, Vincent McAviney, who is in London for us. Vincent, can you bring us up to date? What is happening?
Well, the Prime Minister arrived late, Tessa, to that meeting. She went in around 8 past the hour. It was apparently that packed that some MPs couldn't get in, and there was banging on the desks when the Prime Minister arrived. Now, in the last few minutes, it's being reported that she said to MPs that she will hand over the leadership once Brexit is delivered. When pressed on this, she said she will not remain in post for the next phase of the negotiations. And one MP, James Cartledge, says her clear implication was that she would go once the withdrawal agreement was passed. So once she has that third meaningful vote and the withdrawal agreement is passed, the Prime Minister seems to be signalling that she will go and she won't go on to the next stage of the negotiations. So that would therefore get some Brexiteer MPs on side to do that third vote. But it was also, as predicted in tonight's Evening Standard newspaper, edited by the former Chancellor George Osborne, starts the race for a successor to the Prime Minister. Michael Gove there, one person very prominently on the front page, Boris Johnson, Amber Rudd as well. One MP said, Nigel Evans, the chair of the 1922 committee, there would be more runners and riders than the Grand National. So Theresa May, it sounds like, has just started the firing gun on a fresh leadership election if she manages to get her withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons.
All right, thank you for that, Vincent. Let's get a quick reaction from both of you. I'll start with you because this would mean that the UK, there's no more hope for the UK to stay if they vote this through and if they do follow on through siding with the withdrawal agreement that currently exists on the table. What is your reaction to Theresa May resigning, saying she will resign if the withdrawal deal is passed through?
I mean, that's really internal UK politics. I don't have anything to comment, of course. We are waiting for a perspective, a positive position that tell us what the UK wants to do with its future. I, of course, consider Brexit a very big mistake. So if the UK...
It seems they're going ahead with it.
But of course, if anything would secure a positive position, a positive majority is welcome. But I don't want to comment on the internal politics of the Tories.
Okay, Nigel, quick reaction
from you. But it's no good, is it? Because if she passes a disastrous treaty that leaves us trapped and is in many ways worse than the current terms of EU membership, then she'll go. Well, the damage is done by then. What good's that?
Well, what good is that? Is Nigel's last word there. Coming up on Raw Politics, a lot more for you. Should European countries apologize for colonization? Mexico's president is asking Madrid to say sorry for Spanish conquest 500 years ago. That debate is up next. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, a debate erupted this week over an issue that is several hundred years old. The European Parliament adopted a resolution calling for EU states to recognize Europe's colonial atrocities and make reparations, including issuing public apologies. This on the same week that Spain refused a demand from Mexico to say sorry for crimes committed against indigenous people during the conquest. And here's what the Mexican President Obrador had to say.
Envié ya una carta al rey de España y otra carta al Papa para que se haga un relato de agravios y se pida perdón a los pueblos originarios por las violaciones a lo que ahora se conoce como derechos humanos. Hubieron matanzas, imposiciones, la llamada conquista.
All right, joining us for this panel, we have Amjad Bashir. He's a British MEP from the Conservatives and Reformist group here at the European Parliament. And we have our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, joining us. All right, let's get straight to the point here. Should nations be apologizing for crimes of the past? I'll ask you first, Amjad.
In my view, colonialism has a lot to answer for. I think it introduced slavery. Millions died. I think it took land, expropriated land from people. It introduced diseases. But is this the right way to look back towards what's happened in history? We can't revisit history. In my view, I cite the example of successes since independence. Look at Singapore, look at Indonesia, look at Malaysia. On the Indian subcontinent, look at India, look at Pakistan. In Africa, look at Gambia, look at Kenya. In South America, look at Peru. Examples of success.
Look at Zimbabwe, look at Syria.
If you could let me finish.
Look at
let me finish. These countries have proved that if you have democracy, if you have rule of law, if you have property rights, if you allow your individuals to develop, they will almost eliminate poverty and succeed. I think what the post-colonialists could do...
Pakistan and India have almost eliminated poverty.
Yes, indeed. If you look at Pakistan
under what?
If you look at India and Pakistan, a huge success in their GDP, the huge success going forward.
They're also some of the poorest people in the world.
There are indeed.
Live in India and Pakistan.
There are indeed. I come from Pakistan. I know a lot more about the Indian subcontinent than yourself, with all due respect. What I'm trying to say...
Clearly tonight you don't.
Should they be apologizing? Should nations be apologizing?
My view is that the colonialists, the biggest help they could give to the countries that they colonized before is to help them to have rule of law, democracy, independence, judiciary, etc. That is a way of that's a way of doing it.
I mean, I think from my personal point of view, I think when we look at this, of course, colonialism to a large degree did lead to horrific crimes, led to conquest, led to plunder. It led to countries ending up to a large degree to the state they're in. It is not a surprise that Western Europe is one of the wealthiest parts of the world. The countries that were colonised by Western Europe remain some of the poorest countries in the world, and we continue to benefit from colonisation. We have to recognise that. But what I would say is that an apology can just simply be an empty gesture.
Without reparations.
Well, not necessarily without reparations, but it is also still important. And the reason I say that, look at any society where there's been conflict, whether it's been from Northern Ireland, where I'm from, whether it's South Africa. People do still need to feel a sense of justice. They need to feel that it's not just kind of actions, but there are words and meaningful words to that. And so I think it is entirely legitimate for a country to request an apology.
I think a lot of countries have apologised, but reparations, I don't think so.
I think a lot of countries. Well, there's still a number that haven't, and I wouldn't say a lot of countries, but also just the point that people who support an apology to former colonized nations is that because there's that idea that, as you were saying, the people who are now white Europeans, if we can describe this, that are reaping the benefits of a colonial past. So this is the reason put forth by those who are saying, well, an apology is needed, and reparations are needed.
I think what they could do is lower their tariffs, allow countries that are trying to develop to export their goods, like here in Europe. We discriminate countries in Africa, etc., by putting up barriers. What they could do is remove those barriers, allow them to trade with them, instead of protecting farmers who are inefficient in our own countries.
Okay, just to bring up one more point before we go. It says the UN was asking Belgium to apologize to its former colonies because they were saying that the root causes of present-day human rights violations lie in the lack of recognition of the true scope of the violence and injustice of colonization.
Well, and it is not just about what happened when colonial forces were in their country. Also, clearly what has happened in many parts of the world, not least of all Congo. But when colonial forces left, they essentially removed the very few structures that were in place. Structures and civic society had not been built up. And thus, it either allowed despots or civil war. If you look at whole swathes, actually, of countries that suffered from colonialism, civil war almost immediately came afterwards. I mean, it's not a surprise that those countries then also do have a responsibility.
I mean, clearly this is still part of ongoing conversations, political conversations.
I think this is reinforcing my point of good governance and the colonials helping.
We'll have to,
and apologising should be part of that. Apologising should be part of that.
We will have to leave it at that now. Because, Darren, I'd like to go to you. We'll switch gears a little bit here because we do have breaking news in our coverage of what's happening in the UK on Brexit. Darren, bring us up to speed and with the latest that we know from London.
Well, we just heard in the last, 50 minutes or so that Theresa May addressing Conservative backbenchers inside Parliament, and there's much speculation about whether she would go this far or not, has said that she will not be around for the next phase of the Brexit process, that she wants to see the withdrawal, the divorce, if you like, through, but she will not be around for the future negotiations in regards to trade and relationship between the UK and the EU. Now, there was no date set on this, so some Conservative MPs are still quite sceptical about what this actually means. How quickly will she potentially go? But I think this is a significant moment because it is a marker in the line. It's what many Conservative MPs have been asking for. The big question, of course, for Theresa May and the government is this enough? Or is it too little, too late? Is this enough to convince those remaining Eurosceptic Conservative MPs who have thus far not said they're going to back her deal? Will this announcement tonight be enough to win them over? It's too early to tell, but there is speculation that she could bring back this vote on Friday.
There was a lot of feeling that she might not actually do that, that she would stand firm, but here we are, that latest news that Darren was bringing us, and we will be live from London with our correspondent, Vincent McAviney, after a short break, so do stick around. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, we know we've been covering Brexit all week, and today we have some breaking news for you. Let's go straight to our correspondent, Vincent McAviney in London, who's following all the action from there. Vincent, can you bring us up to speed with all the latest?
Tessa, I've just been sent an extract of what the Prime Minister said inside the 1922 committee, so I'm going to read some of it to you now. She said, "I have very clearly heard the mood of the parliamentary party. I know there is a desire for a new approach and new leadership in the second phase of the Brexit negotiations, and I won't stand in the way of that." She goes on to say, "I know some people are worried that if you vote for the withdrawal agreement, I will take that as a mandate to rush into phase 2 without debates. I won't. I hear what you are saying. We need to get the deal through to deliver Brexit." She finishes by saying, "I'm prepared to leave this job earlier than I intended in order to do what is right for our country and our party. I ask everyone in the room to back the deal so that we can complete our historic duty." So there we go. The Prime Minister making it clear that if she gets the backing for her withdrawal agreement in that third meaningful vote, which the Speaker still says she can't do at the moment unless she starts a new parliamentary session, then she will go and a new leader will take over. This is not what she wanted. The Prime Minister had said back in December when the 1922 committee had the procedure for vote of confidence in her, she reassured MPs to back her then by saying, "I won't run again in 2022 at the next election." She said, though, that she regretted having to say that because she loved the job. Now the Prime Minister finally realising that in order to get her withdrawal agreement through, she will have to leave at some point in the next couple of weeks if they vote it through. So this is a big change for the Prime Minister. She was apparently very emotional making this statement. Her voice was said to be cracking at points. She thanked her Downing Street team, her whips, and she said that she thought that they now needed to back it in order for her to go on and for someone else to take this on. So one ERG member, Pauline Latham, has already confirmed that she will now support the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement, saying the Prime Minister has made the right decision. We'll see over the next couple of hours how many more get on board with that. I think there will still be a hardcore of Andrea Leadsom, John Redwood, who will still vote against the Prime Minister. We're expecting a statement as well from the DUP in the next couple of minutes, whether they get on board. So quite dramatic events here at Westminster tonight as the Prime Minister signals she will go at some point in the next few weeks if she gets her withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons.
Thank you for that, Vincent McAvenny, bringing us up to date with what's happening in London. Now, this is obviously a topic that we will be continuing to talk about in the program after Raw Politics on your call. So we do want you to call in and give us what you think on what is happening in London. But joining us in the studio tonight is Roberta Metsola. She's a Maltese MEP from the European People's Party, and Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, still with us. Let's get some reaction. Darren, can you tell us what exactly is going on? Was this expected?
I think many MPs had hoped it was going to happen. With Theresa May, you have to set expectations pretty low. When she thinks she's going to do something, she doesn't necessarily do it. I think the Chancellor of the Exchequer, actually, who's just left that meeting, has summed it up quite well when he said that it is sad, in his view, but he hopes it's going to work. Hope it's going to work in the sense that he hopes it will convince those remaining Eurosceptic Conservative MPs who have twice voted down her deal in historic numbers, may finally turn around either at the end of this week or the start of next week.
But this is not a guarantee.
Her
offering up
it's far from a guarantee, and yeah, I mean, it's an interesting line, isn't it, for the British Prime Minister, which is essentially back me and then sack me. And Downing Street are tonight suggesting that if her deal does go through, she will, on May 22nd, essentially start the process of trying to elect a new Conservative leader. So, interesting times. The question, I think Vinny was right, is this enough without the DUP, who we might or might not hear from this evening? Without them, it's very difficult to see how it would
Roberta,
still work.
What do you think about what is happening now? So it seems like her withdrawal agreement is still in play.
Yes, and in fact it's quite interesting to see that it's for the Brexiteers, they're going to have to choose between their party leader and their Prime Minister or a deal that they've been complaining about all along and voting against. So it's again another interesting twist. I mean, you have to, even though you can criticize a lot, but you have to admire the fact that Theresa May has lasted this long. I mean, you have to see her dogged persistence at making sure that she tries, but the Speaker has thrown her yet another sort of, or has blinded aside again.
If there's no substantial change, right? You can't.
So how can now those people who have voted against the deal twice, as you just said, in historic numbers, are they going to simply change? So for Theresa May to leave, I mean, it's also very difficult to explain also from an electoral point of view.
All of you watching can join in this conversation with Roberta and Darren later on your calls, 5 minutes past 7 CET. Now, all the contact information we'll be showing you on the screen. There it is. You can call us for free at 00800 3333 7002. You can send an email to rawpoll@euronews.com or use the hashtag #RawPolitics on social media, and you can look for us on Skype as well. So certainly Brexit going to be on the topic there. You can call us and let us know your thoughts on what is happening in London. All right, before we go tonight, let's bring you the raw moment, which comes from the Italian town of Loreto, where the Pope appears to have broken papal tradition in a most entertaining way. Let's take a look.
I'm not entirely sure it's entertaining or disconcerting in some regards.
Yeah, but I think you just didn't want people to be kissing the ring. All right, we will be back. That was a short break from Brexit, in fact. But as we said, we will talk to you. We'd like your views on what is going on in the UK. That's 5 minutes past 7. We will bring you all the latest news first, and then do come back for your call.